Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It is October 1st and I am super excited about the month of October for my channel because I have some really cool things planned for this month in keeping with the theme of Halloween and spookiness, ghosts, all kind of things tied in with Halloween. I'm not just talking a couple of really cool DIYs, but I am also talking about EVPs. I am talking about tarot, Ouija boards, haunted cemetery even. So I really hope, guys, that you're going to stick around with my channel because it is really going to be a lot of fun. I've been putting a lot of thought into things I wanted to do this month. And I definitely really want to make my channel pretty cool for the month of October. So, what better way to start the month of October off than to share with you a few weird experiences I had as a young girl. And I want to say 2 out of 3 of them occurred in the same apartment. I'm not talking about a haunted apartment. No, the apartment was not haunted, but just odd experiences that I had. And you can let me know in the comments section if you've had any odd experiences, and let me know. It is a really interesting topic to get on. Now, even if you don't believe in the paranormal, if you don't believe in spirits, you know, that is fine too. Everybody's entitled to their opinion and their beliefs. I just think that some people, for whatever reason, are more in tune with, shall we say, other things around them than the average person. They may pick up on sense that other people don't. They may hear things. They may just sense things and know things. And to that degree, Ronnie and I seem to be in tune with that. We don't see things as much as just know when something is around. And the reason that I am so much a believer, not just my own personal experiences, but also there is someone who I wish I could sometime make contact with. It would give me a lot of closure. I will talk about that in a different video, but suffice to say that for myself, I do believe in spirits. I do believe that not everyone chooses to move on. I think some stay to watch over their families. I think some maybe are bound by a tragedy to be in a particular place. They may want to leave, but they can't. What could I say? These are just my beliefs, and anyway, I have a couple of really cool things to talk about. I may have mentioned in one of my earlier videos, possibly last year, about being in a fire as a little girl. Well, the address that I am talking about, 128 North Wyoming Street here in Hazleton, was the apartment building where there was a fire in the apartment upstairs over us. I will never forget it because I was homesick from school, and my mother and my grandmother were in the parlor, and they were watching Elvis Presley live, Aloha from Hawaii. I always will remember that. And I got up to go to the bathroom. And the way the apartment was situated, if you say this hand is the door. You came into the door. There is a hallway here, part of the hallway, and the hallway went that way. If you went this way, it went straight back to the bathroom. Pantry, back door, yard, steps was there. And then here would have been my grandmother's kitchen. It was like a semi-island where she had like these bar stools you could sit at. And then around that corner was the bedrooms. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. I shared a room with my mom. So I remember getting up, going to the bathroom, going back to sleep. But later on, I got up again. I was dealing with a sore throat and I wanted a drink. So I went into the parlor, told my mother I was getting some ginger ale. I went out into the kitchen and something smelled weird. And when I had turned the light on in the kitchen, I was looking around. There was a smell of something burning. So I looked, at the oven, nothing on the stove. Toaster was unplugged. And it just so happened when I looked up, there was wisps of smoke coming out from under the kitchen light. And that really weirded me out. And I remember I put the drink on the counter and I went running into the parlor, told my mother and grandmother. Well, as quick as it took me to get into that room and tell them what I seen, and for my mother to come running out into the kitchen, next thing you knew, it's like there was billows of smoke coming out. And then the neighbors, like next door to us, they were banging on the door. And next thing you knew, all hell broke loose. And I remember being around the corner and in a neighbor's house. My mother was friends with this particular lady. They worked in the sewing factories together. I went to school with their daughter and son. I remember the three of us looking out their kitchen window and watching the roof of our apartment building. Literally, it seemed like it lifted up for a brief second, and then part of it just collapsed right in. Now, our apartment didn't have that kind of damage. It had water damage, smoke damage. It was a mess, a total mess. And it actually took us several months of bouncing around with family and everything until we actually moved to Diamond Avenue. So it was a little weird, how that ended, living at that address. But before all that, we were living over a cute little family-owned craft store, hobby store called Behaviour. And it was a really nice store. I used to get my grandmother to get me things from there. I did a lot of crafts when I was young because I was sick a lot. So I was really into, like different things, doing different things. So I won't say I spent a lot of time at home, but I was sick frequently and I was home enough. I did pass. I did make up work I missed. But it's just the idea that when I was little, I had a lot of issues with my tonsils, and I missed a lot of school because of it. It stunk. So, anywho, so we were at this address for several years. We lived on the second floor, and it was a nice big apartment. So, another time, I was sick, and I thought I was having a dream. I thought I was dreaming that I was floating by the ceiling in the room I shared with my mom. And that I could see myself sleeping. And I remember thinking that this was a dream. I was basically groping my way into the kitchen. I was fascinated with the chandelier. Now there was a kitchen light, but where my grandmother's table was, kitchen table, there was a beautiful chandelier. We have one in the parlor too. And I always loved those gorgeous big teardrop beads and everything. And I just wanted to touch it. And I remember thinking, this is a dream. And here I am, literally floating around. and I am touching these beads and everything. Well, these screws were covered by these brass caps, and they were pointy on top. And I didn't realize how pointy. And apparently, trying to turn, I cut my leg. That's all I remember. I wake up the next day. I get up. My grandmother was running a bath for me. And I remember telling her I had this really weird dream that I was sleeping, but I was looking down at myself, and I was in the parlor, and I was touching the crystal beads and chandelier and everything, and, you know, having a blast doing that. And my grandmother seemed to be very concerned about this dream, like, really. She took my temperature. I didn't have a temperature. I guess my fever broke. And I guess her and my mom pretty much attributed it to just being delirious with a high fever. I don't know. But wait till you hear this. So my grandmother's get me undressed to give me a bath. Well, run the bath for me. I have a nice big scratch on my leg. And my grandmother's like, how the heck did you get that? And I said, well, that was from the chandelier, Graham. What do you mean it was from the chandelier? I said, well, I kind of turned around, I said, and my leg bumped against one of the pointy covers, and it scratched my leg. Very, very interesting. I never had that kind of a dream again. Many years later, in my 30s, I'm in Barnes & Noble's. Not Barnes & Noble, it was, we had a different bookstore, Walden Books here in Hazleton. And I used to take my kids in there maybe like at least twice a month. And, you know, get them books or, you know, an activity, something they would like. And I would pour over different books myself. So I was in a New Age occult section, and this title kind of catches my eye, out-of-body experience. So I'm flipping through this book, and certain words are leaping out at me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, when I was a little girl, did I have an out-of-body experience because I was sick and I had been having a high fever? It's actually not uncommon, I guess, for that to happen sometimes in a person's life. They might consider it a dream, but in all reality, it's actually an out-of-body experience. Nothing like that ever happened to me again. And hearing some very creepy things, I bought the book about out-of-body experiences, and I remember reading it in like 2 days and hearing some people's very scary experiences while actually going through something like that made me like, no, I don't ever want to have something like that happen to me again. Thankfully, it never did. But as a child, I mean, you're innocent. You don't know. And I always thought it was kind of cool. But as an adult, no, it actually was something scary. And I just didn't realize, really, how scary it actually could have been. Another interesting experience was actually a night before I was going to be going back to school. I remember I won't say I was afraid of the dark, but I did not like sleeping in a room with the door closed. I always had to have the room open a little bit. I needed to see a hallway light. I did not like being in a totally dark room. I can't say specifically that I was afraid of anything. I just was very uncomfortable in a dark room. I remember I used to tell my grandmother that if I was in a totally dark room and the hallway light was off, that things were trying to talk to me. So my grandmother always had a hall light on, which was good to see to go to the bathroom. And I always slept, for the most part, with the door open enough that I could actually see the light in the hallway. It was reassuring. And even as an adult, when I did live in places that I had a door, I always kept them somewhat open. I never, a lot of times I didn't even bother closing them. I, to this day, do not really like falling asleep in a completely dark room. I have to have some show on. I have to be watching a movie or TV or something. I, to this day, just don't feel comfortable in a totally dark room. I don't know. I can't say any one specific reason why. I don't. And this occurred before the fire, several months before the fire. I got up to go to the bathroom, but my grandmother was awake. And my grandfather used to work overnight. He was an interstate truck driver, not interstate, meaning he drove locally throughout Pennsylvania, not out of Pennsylvania. So she was, I guess, waiting for him to basically come home soon. And she just happened to be awake. And for whatever reason, when I went to step foot to walk into the part of the hallway past the kitchen, I got scared. And I asked her to walk me to the bathroom. And the reason I got scared was because when I looked over by the window, there was a built-in window seat that looked over the yard where our fire escape steps were for the backyard. There was a woman in white sitting there. She seemed tall, like she was a very tall woman. And I remember I stopped and I said to my grandmother, "Who is that sitting at the window?" And very calmly, my grandmother says, "Oh, that's Happy's mother," which would have been my grandfather's mother. And I was like, "Why is she sitting by the window? When did she come here?" "Oh, don't worry about her. I don't know why she's here, but I don't necessarily think that it's good." Okay, you're telling a little girl this, 8, 9 years old. I go to the bathroom, wash my hands, she walks me back to bed. I don't think a darn thing about it. About 2 weeks later, we hear a cricket. And it's driving my grandmother nuts. She is like adamant, "We have to find this cricket. This is like an omen of bad luck. You've got to get this cricket the hell out of this house. It's bad omen, bad omen." She had my grandfather like literally like trying to see behind cabinets and pulling them away from the wall with a flashlight and things, like going adamant that there was this damn cricket in the pantry area. And there was, you could hear it. So finally, they find it, they catch it, they trap it, they let it out. And my grandmother is crying. I didn't understand why. And my grandfather says to me, she's very superstitious. She believes that it's an omen of bad luck, something going to happen. Well, that and seeing that woman sitting by there. So the day after the ghostly visit, my grandfather's mother, I asked my grandmother, well, why would Pap's mother be here? When did she come to visit? Like, I did not understand. I thought I seen a person. And my grandmother explained to me that apparently, I guess many years before, she had lived there when it was a house, or in that area, at that address, but I guess it had been a house. And I don't know if she died there or whatever, but she was familiar with that area. So, yeah, there's some of the crazy conversations, like, my grandmother and I had, an outsider would have thought, you people are all lonely in the head, you know? But, like, my grandmother and I had some bizarre conversations when I was a young girl about things that just were, like, normal to us. And, like, sure enough, about 2-3 months later, we had the fire. Was it just coincidence? Was it really warning? I don't know. But consider this. You know the saying about 7 years bad luck if you break a mirror? My grandmother had a beautiful old mirror. It was very old. It got loose in the frame. My grandmother took it down one day to clean it and it broke. It was an accident. But she was so upset, and she told my grandfather about it, and she had said, if bad things happen, it's because I broke the mirror, but it was an accident. Now, I mean, you know, a lot of people like would be like, oh, big deal, you broke a mirror, so what, you know? My grandmother was very superstitious. Here were some of my grand's superstitions. Leave a rocking chair rocking, the devil's going to come to the house. Don't put keys on the table, the devil's going to come into the house. Don't open an umbrella up inside a house, bringing the devil in. I remember sarcastically saying to her, oh boy, you know, like from everything you hear about the devil, you know, he seems to be like this really, horrible person, so why is it so easy to bring him into your house? And with the stupidest things, like opening up an umbrella. But she was adamant about it, and like, oh my gosh, you did not dare open up an umbrella until you actually were outside. If you opened it up, she would scream at you. If you had keys on the table, oh, and playing cards. Nope, no playing cards were allowed in the house. Hence why, as a teenager, if I was ever at someone's house and they were playing cards or poker or something, I had absolutely no damn clue what they were playing, because my grandmother considered that a big no-no. Playing cards, no. So, yeah, my grandma had some very odd superstitions, but not about black cats. Not about cats, but just about these weird things that, I mean, as I got older, I thought, oh my God, this is so stupid. So stupid. Like, who in their right mind is going to believe that you leave a rocking chair rocking, that's going to bring the devil up? Like, really? You know, like, okay, if you say so, Graham, you know, very weird, very odd. I don't know what they were based on. I don't know, I mean, if she was raised with them, I really don't know. But she drove me crazy at times with some of these peculiar things, you know? So, yeah. I know what I see. And I also know I wasn't really, like, sick at that time because I was going to be going back to school. I remember going to the bathroom and seeing this lady. And my grandmother had pictures of her. My grandmother had a big blue, like a Wedgwood blue metal cookie tin with a square. She had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures. Some very old, black borders, that like beige photography. She didn't even know who half of these people were. I guess they were pictures that were passed down to her from maybe her mom. I don't know. So I remember looking at some of them pictures of like the babies with the borders around them, or, you know, like someone you could tell obviously was dead. And then some of these people, you know, in like clothes, say from like 1800s, some like 1900s, early 1900s, like who were these people? And reading off names, and oh, I think that was, you know, my mother's great-grandmother or something. Like, oh wow, I mean, it was cool. I wanted to get my hands on. We were in a fire, well, not me personally, I had my own apartment by then, but my mother and grandmother were in a fire in Diamond Avenue. I, out of anything, wanted that tin of pictures. I thought my mother took it. It was missing. When I went in my grandmother's closet to get it, I assumed my mother had it. I don't know if they took it somewhere and forgot about it, but the pictures wound up going AWOL. I would so have loved to add them pictures now, try to figure out who these people were, figure out how they played into like my grandmother's genealogy, you know, and maybe even had donated some of them to the local museum. Would have been really, really cool. But anyway, she had a picture of my grandfather's mother, and sure enough, she was a very tall woman. She was actually taller than her husband. My grandpa was real tall. And when I looked at this woman's picture, I'm like, yeah, that's the lady that I've seen sitting by the window. Now, this spooky story I'm about to tell you involves me. But what, buddy? I'm sorry I'm ignoring him, but he seems to be like enjoying this. This involves me in my 20s. And in the apartment that I had, not on Wyoming Street, this was on West 2nd Street. And this was a bizarre experience in that I didn't realize until the next morning what had actually happened the night before. So, my mother stayed at my apartment. I don't believe Ronnie's dad and I were together at that time. This is going pretty far back. I'm believing this actually occurred before I even actually started seeing Ronnie's father. I just had my older boys. So, yes, actually it was before I had my son Ronnie. I wanted to go out for a bit on Friday night, so my mother stayed over. So I went to a bar, met up with one or two of my girlfriends, had a couple of drinks, and I came home. I had an 8-track player. And stop, buddy, no. I had an 8-track player in my bedroom. It actually was like new, and so were a lot of the 8-tracks. I had actually got it for like $5 with all these 8-track tapes in the Salvation Army store. And because it was in such like mint condition and the tapes, I grabbed it. And there's a lot of good 8-tracks, believe me. So I had it in the dresser by my bed, and I thought the music was relatively low. I was just starting to fall asleep. My bedroom door pushes back, and, you know, I'm half asleep, and I look over. I wasn't intoxicated. My mother says to me, Sharon, could you turn that volume down a little bit more? Sure, Mom, good night. Leaned over, turned it down a little bit more. I get up in the morning, I smell coffee, and I'm sitting up in bed, and, you know, the tape had ejected during the night, obviously, when it was done playing. So I call my mother in the room, and I forget what I asked her. I think about the night before. Something seemed weird about the night before. So I call her back in, and I said to her, Mom, stand by my door, like right here, which my mom did. And I'm looking at her, and I go, that's the same bathrobe you had on last night, right? She says, yeah. I go, you didn't have a green robe on? No, my mom years later did have a green, or years earlier, had a green robe. But at that night that she stayed over my place, no, she had a very light pink robe with her. She was like, no, well, it's the same bathrobe. Why? I'm same pajamas. What are you talking about? And I'm like, well, then I don't know. I said, who pushed open my bedroom door and asked me to turn the volume down? I said, on the 8-track. But that wasn't you last night. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said I was just starting to fall asleep. The door pushed open. There was a woman. And now that I think about it, she was shorter than you, short hair, and she had like a green bathrobe on and says, Sharon, would you turn the volume down on the music just a little bit? And I was half asleep, and I'm like, yeah, sure, Mom. And I reach over, turn it down a little bit more, and she closed the door back. Like I said, I always sleep with it open, like so much, so I could see light. And when I realized that, my mother just looked at me like bizarre. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed these true but rather spooky, unusual stories. Believe me, I am all ears. If you have any interesting, spooky stories that you would like to share as well, please feel free. I may actually do a video about some of them. Perhaps we could do a video chat and maybe include video clips in a video if some of you folks would, be willing to actually, like, share your experience through maybe a messenger video chat or Zoom. That would be actually an interesting video as well. Well, guys, I don't know exactly how I'm going to end the month of October. There is a cemetery. It's a little bit of a drive outside of Hazleton that I would love to get to. Ronnie could tell you more about that. I've never been there, but he has. Very creepy cemetery. And it's in a town here in PA called Pringle. I would really like to check it out. So I don't know yet how I'm going to end October, but we will see. So if you like this video, guys, please give it a big thumbs up. You have any interesting stories, let me know in the comment section below. And as I said, if you would be willing to actually do a video clip talking about it, I would love to put together a video of some of my subs' own experiences and do a video based on that. Let me know, guys, in the comment section. Well, if you haven't already, hit my subscribe button. Take care. I will see you all on the next one. Good night.